A miracle. 17 days after a clothing factory complex came crashing down. Pulled out alive from the rubble, Reshma's story was one of hope amidst the death and despair.
Sometimes, even now, in my sleep, I have nightmares that I am trapped in the rubble.
But for the families of many of her fellow workers who perished in that tragedy, and for those who live with disability 6 months on, and without proper compensation, the Rana Plaza nightmare is yet not over.
More than 1,100 people died when the Rana Plaza building collapsed. Mahfuz Sadique reports from Dhaka.
Out of nearly 2/3 of the survivors and families of those who were killed in the factory collapse, only 6% had received any legal benefits. Most have not gone back to work. According to the ActionAid survey, many cite physical injuries from the accident as the reason. The Rana Plaza collapse prompted Western retailers who buy clothes from Bangladesh to announce safety plans for factories. For workers here, this must have looked like the gates of hell, their workplace reduced to an inferno. A blaze that took the lives of several of the 170 people inside when it started. The last of the exhausted firemen are about to leave after fighting this blaze for more than 10 hours earlier today. A smoldering factory lies inside. This is another tragedy in a string of industrial disasters that Bangladesh's garment industry has seen that has resulted in the loss of thousands of lives.
Our correspondent Mahfuz Sadique is there. If lots of factories are closed at Mahfuz, will this affect the supply of clothes to businesses here in the UK and elsewhere in the world?
Well, I've spoken to manufacturers and they're saying that it will impact some of the orders, but probably not in the scale. You must understand Bangladesh has a $21 billion plus industry. So they're used to handling a lot of protests and issues. But they're saying that if this continues, there might be some trouble. Police used water cannons and sound grenades to push them back. At this point, there is a tense situation throughout the capital, Dhaka, and there are reports of sporadic clashes between pro-government and pro-opposition activists and police. Whether enough people will be able to get to the rally point where the opposition is hoping to get together enough opposition activists remains to be seen. Ballots burning on election day, a scene repeated at many polling stations. In more remote areas, the constant fear of attacks at polling stations has left voters wary. Added to that, with the outcome of these polls all but certain, many felt voting would be a futile exercise.
It's been called an ecological catastrophe. An oil spillage in Bangladesh's Sundarban mangrove forest. The BBC's Mahfuz Sadique has just got back from the affected region.
I think 10-15 kilometers away, we started seeing heavy oil floating in the canals of the Sundarbans. Oil has slowly seeped into the vegetation and, very importantly, the fragile mangrove forest. It's the world's largest mangrove forest, the Sundarbans, the home of the Royal Bengal tiger. And fishermen have already started complaining that they haven't seen fishes for the last 3-4 days when they went out. The man accused of being the butcher of Mirpur, executed by hanging just hours after the Supreme Court rejected his last-ditch appeal. Here at the Central Jail in Old Dhaka, after hours of speculation, the man convicted of massacres of unarmed civilians during a war that brought independence for this nation was executed. For many Bangladeshis, it's the beginning of the end of a long path to justice for atrocities committed more than 4 decades ago. But closure is coming at a high cost. When Bangladesh first won the test status and they could play in the World Cup, and that day you had thousands of people on the streets of the capital Dhaka, and you could feel the fervor and the sort of excitement that they have suddenly come in the big boys league. And the journey from there to today, in a match where the first time a batsman has scored a century. Yeah. There you go, that's the first. Yeah. And then you have Bangladesh in the quarterfinals. So there are many firsts for Bangladesh, and for that reason in itself, but also to beat a team like England, which Bangladesh has done before. But this in itself was a great victory.